All right. So, good evening, everyone. It is 7:05, so we are going to get started. So again, greetings. Thank you for joining us tonight, and it's wonderful to be in this virtual space with everyone. My name is Sheridan Jack Brown, and I am a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Kappa Zeta chapter, which is in Brooklyn, and I'm also the chair of the Zetas Have Heart Committee. Before we get started, I would like to pay homage to our five trailblazing founders who laid the foundation and paved the way for us to champion women's rights and issues through our principles of service, scholarship, sisterhood, and finer womanhood. So, cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of all women. However, Black and Brown women, particularly Black women, die from heart disease at a significantly higher rate than white women. So, to address this issue, the Zetas Have Heart program is designed to increase Black women's awareness of heart health and support Zeta members and the community in getting fit and becoming more active. In line with the Zetas Have Heart mission, tonight's discussion will provide you with information from a holistic perspective so you can make informed decisions about your heart health and take action to protect it. So before I turn the floor over to Sora Nelson to introduce tonight's guest speaker, please take a moment to mute your mics to prevent the interruption of background noise during our virtual time together. So again, welcome and thank you for joining us. And Sora Nelson, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Sora Sheridan. Thank you all for joining us. And I am so excited for everyone to hear from our guest speaker, Naisha. Before she takes the mic, let me tell you a little bit about her. Naisha Mosley is the CEO and founder of Hillionaire Inc. She is a transformational wellness speaker, coach, and facilitator. Hillionaire is a wellness anchored brand and movement exploring how inner wealth shapes the way we live, lead, and move through the world. At its core, Hillionaire is all about investing in what sustains you and to thrive in ways that empowers both people, communities, and organizations. With 15 plus years as a global HR leader, Naisha guided executives and teams through change in high pressure environments, witnessing how unspoken struggles often surface as stress, imbalance, and fatigue. Her passion for fitness, wholeness, and authenticity helped birth Hillionaire. Anchored in the belief that well being is a strategic investment, Hillionaire facilitates experiences that invite pause, reflection, healing, and intentional action across leadership, movement, and community spaces. Please join me in welcoming Naisha, who will be our guest speaker for this Heart Health Month.
Great. Thank you so much, Kalila, for just the wonderful introduction. And before I get started, I really want to just give a huge thank you to Kalila, to Sheridan, and to the Sigma Kappa Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated for inviting me to collaborate for this Heart Health Month event. I also just want to acknowledge, I want to just make sure I don't go any further without acknowledging the chapter's continued commitment to advocacy for meaningful causes such as heart health, because that is something that is really close to my heart. So it's just really nice to collaborate and be here in this space with you. I'm genuinely excited to explore the conversation tonight as it relates to the connection between inner wealth and heart health. And as Kalila mentioned, my name is Naisha, but you can call me Nai. And I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. But before I jump into a little more, introducing you a little bit more to who I am, I do want to know who's in the room with us. So if you can, feel free to say hi in the chat and just let us know where you're dialing in from. I know we have like a lot of people dialing in locally. If you're dialing in from another state, would love to know where you're dialing in from. And while you are saying hello in the chat and maybe telling us a little bit about where you're dialing in from, I will kick off by sharing a couple of fun facts about myself, and then we can progress forward. So thank you so much for joining. So, again, I'm Nai. I am a native New Yorker. I was born here in New York, born and raised in New York. So I've lived across two to three of the five boroughs throughout my lifetime. A little bit more about me. I'm a wife, daughter, sister, friend, amongst many other titles. And I'm also a proud fur mama, I like to call myself. I have a miniature Labradoodle Rue, who's like my baby. So that's a huge fun fact about me. I'm also into, Kalila also mentioned this, and this is the theme, part of the theme of tonight. I'm also a huge advocate for wellness, fitness, primarily in the space of running. I've had the pleasure of running here domestically, running internationally as a form of a hobby and fitness. I'm not a professional runner, but I do enjoy running as a form of promoting inner wealth and also to take care of my own heart health. Professionally, I've spent much of my career working in human resources and in the leadership space. So I've sat close to not only just executives, but I've sat close to just various levels of employees in large organizations. And I've watched them navigate growth, pressure, responsibility, and all of the change that comes along with that. One thing that I learned throughout my professional experience is that people don't leave what's happening in their personal lives or even in their professional lives, the things that's resting on someone's heart, they don't leave that at the door when they step into the workspace. And I mean that from a place of maybe they're not talking about it, but what's happening, what the heart is carrying, is coming through the door with them. And that doesn't just apply to the workspace, that means in schools, work, when you're home, even everyone that's on this call. You arrived in the space tonight on this virtual call, and whatever your responsibilities may look like, it doesn't leave just because you're on the call, it's still here with you. So experiencing that from a professional standpoint, and then also just being an advocate and sort of navigating my own changes in life because I'm human as well, and I'm speaking through lived experience, not from a place of perfection. That combination, personal and professional, is what led me to the role that I'm in now as the founder of Hillionaire. It was birthed through my own personal experiences. It was birthed through what I had learned through the experiences of others. And I feel called to do this work more importantly. So it's less about a title and it's more about the opportunity for me to serve others. And while I'm on this journey myself. Again, this is not about perfection, it's about awareness, and it's about making small investments in ourselves that support our individual and our collective journeys as it relates to well being as a whole, and most importantly, the theme of tonight, heart health. So, tonight is not about being a lecture. There will be a lot of information coming from my end, but there will be a lot of opportunities for interaction. And I would encourage you, if you're familiar with Zoom chat, we'll probably use some links. The program is called Mentimeter to engage a bit more because I don't want it to be a one-sided conversation, but I'd love for us to have just some dialogue and yeah, that's a little bit about the experience. So tonight is all about pausing. Tonight is about reflecting. Tonight is about reconnecting to what our heart has been carrying. And we'll be, like I mentioned, we'll be using the Zoom chat for more interaction. One last thing before I go into the sort of rundown of what tonight will look like, the elements of what we'll cover. I just want us to do a little bit of intention setting, and we don't have to stay here very long, but I want us to just really pause because awareness and just taking a second to step back and give ourselves the opportunity to take things in is a huge part of what we'll be doing tonight. So I just want us to move into this space with grace. Before we jump in, there's nothing that we need to share out loud. There's nothing that we need to actually explain. This is actually a moment for you. There's a few thought-provoking questions that I will ask. You're not required to respond to these questions in the chat, and you're not actually required to answer them at all tonight. But this is more for you to think through it and hold on to those answers for yourself because it will help. It will be part of what we move through tonight. So if you can just put your hand over your heart, because the heart is the organ that we'll be talking about mostly tonight. And I want you to quietly and gently and with grace, most importantly, ask yourself a few simple questions. How am I feeling right now, be it emotionally or physically? What do I need in this moment? And last, how can I best support myself right now? And I am actually going to start sharing my screen. And what I'll also do is I'm just going to drop those prompts in the chat just in case anyone missed anything. It'll be right in there for us. So, how am I feeling right now, emotionally or physically? What do I need in this moment? And how can I best support myself right now? So, just take a moment to think through that. And I just want to, while everyone is processing, thank you so much again, everyone, for joining. I see we have representation from Queens, from Brooklyn, the Bronx, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Long Island, Westchester, Connecticut, Goshen, lots of Brooklyn, Delaware, New Jersey, Georgia. Wow. Thank you so much for joining. Connecticut. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for your response. Okay. And what we're going to do next is going to give it a few more seconds of pause here as you begin to process those thought-provoking questions or prompts. And when you're ready, feel free to, you can use the react button in Zoom and you can send through a thumbs up emoji or a heart to let me know that you're ready to progress forward. Okay, we're going to give it maybe about 5 to 10 more seconds. Awesome. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what we'll be exploring together tonight. I want to simplify this, not that the topic is simple at all, but I just want to simplify it. This isn't about fixing everything or fixing anything tonight. Tonight is really about awareness first. So we are noticing what's present for you, for me, for everyone that's on the call, and how the heart and the mind communicates daily. Then the second phase is pretty much an understanding phase. I refer to it as steadiness. So exploring how life feels during full moments or full or demanding moments, and how small shifts that we make can actually make us feel more grounded. It doesn't erase what's happening, but it helps us to move through some of those moments with a little bit more ease or just in a grounded way. And then last but certainly not least, speaking of small shifts, we're going to talk a little bit about micro habits. I like to refer to micro habits as deposits. And those micro habits are small, realistic well-being practices that act as deposits into our inner wealth account. You'll hear a lot of references because my company is Hillionaire, so I look at it as the same way we look at financial wealth and we think about small deposits to build our accounts and the monetary from a monetary standpoint. This is really not about finances. This is about the deposits that we're making to increase our inner wealth, which in return, our heart health is actually, we're paying attention, we're aware, and we are caring and being more responsible about heart health as a part of that process. So moving ahead, to set the tone, continue to set the tone here, talk a little bit about the heart. If you look at the illustration, this is sort of a beautiful illustration of kind of what happens with our heart. Our hearts carry, it's a reservoir of emotion, memory, experiences, and all of these things are often happening within our hearts all at the same time, in the same day, sometimes in the same minute, sometimes in the same second. That it doesn't mean in a dramatic way, but in a very human way. And when we don't make space or we are so disconnected and not aware from all of the things that's happening in our heart, it doesn't mean that those things go away because we're not paying attention to it. It's still there and it shows up anyway, sometimes in our bodies. So from our heart, it's triggering something in our body, it's showing up in our energy, and sometimes how we move through our days. The goal here, as we continue to progress through the session, is not about unpacking a bunch of emotional heaviness. It's about recognizing that our hearts hold more than we often give it credit for. It's a beautiful organ. I think we should spend a lot more time caring for it. But the heart really does hold a lot more than we give it credit for. And many of us have heard this before, so I'm probably not going to share a bunch of information that you haven't heard before, but this is more of reinforcement. And it is essentially the foundation for everything that will follow after now. So, continuing on in the segment of awareness, we talked about the heart being a reservoir of emotions. It holds excitement, it holds joy. So, it doesn't always mean something negative, it holds joy, it holds excitement, grief, stress, restlessness, anxiousness, happiness, whatever those things may be, sometimes all in the same week. This is just a moment to notice all of those things, not to overanalyze, not to overly criticize all of the things that our heart is processing, and not certainly not to feel put ourselves in a position where we need to fix all of those things tonight or in this moment. Just recognizing that some days our hearts feel light, some days our hearts feel full, some days our hearts feel tired. And whatever the heart is actually feeling right now in this moment, recognizing it and just kind of just being present and allowing yourself to just understand what's happening right now is really it can become the first step in knowing what's happening so you can know exactly how to care and how to start responding. Recognizing doesn't always mean take immediate action. Yes, we do want to take action, but sometimes the awareness part is the most important step. So I'm going to invite you all into a Mentimeter activity. And I'm going to share a link in the chat. And when you click this link, it will take you to, let me just put this in the chat. When you click this link, it is going to invite you into a word cloud. The word cloud is actually going to ask you, what has your heart been carrying lately? So once you click the link, you can start your responses and then you'll start to see your words appear. I do just a quick disclaimer, whatever your responses are, if you're using Mentimeter, your name is not attached to it, so feel free to share and you'll start to see the word cloud populate. There we go. So I see gratitude, excitement, anxiety, joy, grief, stress, sorrow, hurt, peace, sadness, tiredness, health, heaviness, shame. These are all a part. When I talked about the heart being a reservoir of emotions, even if you just look at the word cloud, this is an example of sometimes all of the things that are happening in the heart at a given moment, in a minute, in the same week, in the same day. These are feelings that the heart is consistently processing, whether we are fully aware of it or not. The mind, the heart, it's communicating with each other. And we're going to go into that next as we start talking about the mind and the heart connection. So, this is more about awareness. And I just wanted to, because we're here, we're on this journey together. It's really nice to see a collection of words or a rainbow of words of things. And it's some of the words are heavy, some of the words are a little bit on the feelings and emotions are a little bit more on the lighter side, but it just tells you that we are processing a lot. So thank you so much for sharing and participating in the word cloud. And we are going to progress forward. And if you're still sharing in the word cloud, feel free. I can actually share a copy of what that looks like a little bit later. So let's talk a little bit about the heart and mind connection. Up until this point, we're still in the phase of awareness and just noticing. Now I want to start to connect a few dots. The heart and the mind, it's always in conversation, as I previously mentioned. What we think can affect how we feel, and what we feel can affect how we think, how we move, and how we respond. And that's why, for an example, stress, it doesn't just sit in one place, it actually travels. Again, it's not about overthinking and it's not about becoming aware. So all of this heavy thoughts will continue to just sort of like rest on you. That's not what we're doing here, but we're just becoming aware. It's about understanding the relationship between the heart and the mind. Because even if you avoid it, the conversation is always happening between your mind and your heart. When you're stressed, your heart is responding. When you're overwhelmed, you'll probably start to feel shifts in your breathing. When you're grieving, grief, I saw one of the words in the word cloud. Grief can sometimes make you feel like a heaviness in your chest, like a tightness or pressure. And the same thing with feeling anxious or feelings of anxiety. Many of us, and I want to make a strong point here, many of us were never taught an effective, I'm not going to say never taught, but never taught an effective way of how to care for our hearts, emotionally or physically. Most of us were taught how to fix things. That seems to be a running theme, especially when you think about it across race, ethnicities, sometimes cultural norms. Specifically for me, I can't speak for a variety of races. I'm a Black woman. I'm familiar with how things sort of operate in the Black community. And, as a Black woman, I can specifically say, and it doesn't mean that this is only applicable to Black women, but I see this embedded sometimes in the culture that I'm closely associated with. We were taught how to fix things. I've seen family and friends subscribe to a way of operating, just push through, you got this. Just, continue to go on and drive and take it on, fake it till you make it, and all of that, those types of conversations. And that's absolutely unhealthy. That's not an effective way of caring for your heart. I've watched women in my family hold strong because it really looked good on the outside and they looked like they were holding everything together. And then even for men, that's a topic in itself, taught to not even process what the heart is feeling, not even to think about the emotions that the heart is processing. But to anchor the point of just the heart and the mind connection and why it's important to care for the heart, many of us are conditioned intentionally or unintentionally, but I just want to disrupt some of that in this moment to let us know that it is in fact okay and it is in fact important and it is in fact a must that we pay attention to what's happening in our heart, what the heart is processing, whether it's something really great and whether it's something that's actually not so great. It's important for us to be aware of the things that our hearts are processing because when we don't, things can happen and it just doesn't make sense for us to to do that. Sometimes we're at a situation where it's too late. So this is an opportunity for us to really care for this organ that's processing so much and that's keeping us alive and that's just doing so much for us. So we don't have to push through. We can keep going. Truths can exist at once. You can have a challenge, but you can also care for your heart at the same time. And as I mentioned, caring for your heart doesn't mean that it's going to erase all of life's challenges or whatever it is that your heart is processing. It just means that this is happening, life is lifing, but I'm also aware of what's happening in my heart and I'm going to care for my heart. I'm going to respond. We'll talk about move from awareness to action a little bit later in the segment, but it just pretty much puts you in the position to respond with care. So it's not changing how life shows up, but it's being able to ground yourself in a way where you can move through it a little bit more healthy. If that resonates, feel free to drop a heart in the chat, or you can use your heart, what do you call the things? Emojis, responses, thumbs up, or something like that, and let me know that I'm not processing this alone. Okay, so continuing forward, one of the biggest myths that we're taught is that stress only lives in the mind. And we tell ourselves, as I mentioned before, to push through, to stay positive, to keep it moving. And I know that language so well. I'm going to say a few things, and I'm like almost sure that I'm not the only person on this call who's done this. Someone asks, how you doing? You're like, I'm good, I'm fine. Or it sounds a little bit like happy Monday and you have a migraine. Happy Monday and you're stressed out. It doesn't mean that Monday can't still be happy. It just means that it's okay. You are thinking positive, you are, speaking positive affirmations out, you're saying happy Monday, that's great. But it's also great to acknowledge when you're not okay. You want it to be a happy Monday, it will be a happy Monday, but at this moment, I'm feeling this, and this is how I'm going to respond to it with grace. That fake it till you make it conversation is not going to, that's not sustainable, is probably the best way I should say that. Telling yourself you got this, that's okay, but you can't ignore what your heart might be processing. Because I said it as well. Oh, I got this, and I did until I didn't. The body, especially the heart, going back to that beautiful organ that's doing so much work for us. The body, especially the heart, knows when we're pretending to be okay. We can try to smile through meetings. We can try to smile through conversations. We can even try to smile our way through a conversation that we're in tonight and still feel that tightness in our chest, still feel that pressure or that discomfort somewhere else in our body. That's not a weakness. I used to feel like if I acknowledged it, if I said, you know what, my heart is feeling this, or, I don't work well under pressure, or I just told myself all of these things, but it's not a weakness. It is actually your heart communicating and your body also. And it's letting you know that something somewhere along the lines, it needs attention. Okay. Moving ahead. So again, we don't leave our lives at the door when we show up, not to work, not to meetings, not even here. We're human. This is real life. And that said, we bring the responsibilities with us. We bring the joys or the stressors that are attached to the responsibilities that we have. And we bring the fact that we're still trying to figure things out. I know that I too, we don't always know every single move or what the next day is going to bring. We're all, including myself, still trying to figure all of this out. Even as a facilitator, I'm still trying to figure all of this out. And that kind of carrying on with that type of carrying, the things that you bring in with you, the things that the heart is carrying, it continues to add weight until you begin to pause and start to become aware of what those things are. Even when no one else can see it, it's there. So I want to spend a little time here because this is extremely important. We talk about a bunch of emotions that the heart is processing and that we are navigating. And one emotion that's extremely prominent is grief. And I want to share a little bit more about some details about grief that I don't think we think of often. When we hear the word grief, the first thing we think of is losing someone. And that's actually real. Losing someone and the grief that's attached to losing a loved one, it's real, it's real. So I don't want to sort of like graze over that as if it's not an important part of grief, but I do want to highlight that there are so many layers to grief that sometimes we don't even realize that we're grieving other things. Grief shows up in other ways. We grieve seasons of our lives. We grieve versions of ourselves. We grieve the life that we thought we would have by now. Drop an emoji if this is sounding familiar. If you recognize even just one of these things, you have experienced some form of grief and your heart is processing that. Let's call a few other things out. And I want to talk about something that's actually a little bit more, more relevant. We're going to talk about work and careers. Right now, in the marketplace across so many different industries, you have downsizing, you have people losing their jobs, and there's so much grief attached to it, not just on the surface, not that I lost out on a paycheck and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to make it, how I'm going to feed my family. People are grieving the other layers that are embedded in that. They're grieving the routine. They had um, relationships with colleagues and coworkers, and that sometimes those are things that are keeping people going. And sometimes they lose the routine. They wake up in the morning, they're like, "Oh, I usually get breakfast with um Keisha in the morning. We meet up at Dunkin' Donuts and we get our Frappuccino or whatever it is. It's a routine that's associated with something. Or we meet up in the break room, or we kind of like, ride the train together into or whatever that routine is, that's broken. Sometimes colleagues become your family, like close to you, like your family. You're relying on each other for a lot of things. So you're grieving the relationships that you lost on because it doesn't look the same. Because if the routine shifts, you don't see that person as often. You can probably still call them, but just the dynamic is different now. You're grieving the loss of a paycheck. You're grieving your identity. You are grieving your identity. Sometimes when you lose a job or you are no longer associated with something that you have processed that as a part of your identity, that is grief. And again, we grieve dreams. Sometimes you're in a different season in your life, and then the dream that you felt like you once had, and you're probably still doing well, but you still grieve what you thought life was going to be like at a certain point. So it's important to really understand these different layers and types of grief and know that it's more than just losing someone, because that's grief that your heart is carrying as well. And that's why awareness matters. And once we notice what we're carrying, as I mentioned, we can begin to respond to ourselves with more care. So we're going to move from awareness to action. Up until this point, we've been practicing awareness, not fixing things, not changing, just noticing. And awareness by itself is really powerful because that's the first step, but it's something about it that feels incomplete. Once you're aware, you're like, okay, I know my heart is this, I'm processing this, I'm feeling this, and it's like, okay, what do I do with all of this stuff? If the expectation is that I will give you all of the answers to that, that's not exactly what I'm here for tonight. It's about creating awareness, and I can help you to start thinking through some of those micro habits that we'll get into, some of those actions and those small deposits, because you play a huge role in what that will look like to start caring for yourself. What matters next is how we respond to what we've become aware of, not with urgency. We're not rushing and racing anywhere. We're not going to put pressure on ourselves to say we need to fix this by tomorrow because life doesn't work that way. But we're going to do it with intention. The same way, as I mentioned, financial wealth is built little by little, one moment, little deposits, a dollar here, a dollar there. That's finances. Inner wealth is built that way. A little care here, compounding, multiplying, more care, and then our inner wealth account starts to increase. And inner wealth means all things, caring for your heart, caring for your body, caring for your mind, physical, spiritual, all of those things. It's built through small, realistic responses over time. So I know I said micro habit, and just in case you haven't heard the term before, again, it's small intentional actions. These are not rules, these are not requirements. They're actually not made up by other people that you need to follow. These are things that you actually participate in. And they're not checklists. For all my checklist girlies out there, we love a checklist, but this is not a checklist. It's not about checking something off because that's not really going to get you very far as well. Again, I often refer to these as deposits that you make over time, small intentional deposits that you make over time. And we'll walk through a few examples and keyword examples because these are very generic and basic micro habits. And they are examples that I will share to let you know how you can simplify micro habits. But I also want you to think about some micro habits that you can come up with as well as we start to go through this. There's no cookie cutter approach here because most meaningful micro habits are ones that meet your life, your season, and your capacity, not anyone else's. So as we go through, just notice what feels, or what resonates with you, I should say. And if something actually stands out, then feel free to share any reflections in the chat. And as we go through, I forgot to mention, if you have any questions, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. You can start to put questions in the chat as we go through, and then we can address it at the end of the session. So micro habit number one of my favorites, gratitude. Gratitude is one of the smallest yet most impactful deposits that we can make into our inner wealth, and it contributes to our heart health as well. It does not erase the stress or change anything about our circumstances immediately. What it does is it shifts how we relate. It doesn't change the circumstance, or it may not change the circumstance all the time, but it shifts how we relate to what's already present or what's happening. When practiced consistently, gratitude helps us to create a bit more emotional steadiness. And notice I didn't say balance because sometimes when you say balance, for some reason, it has like this layer of this undertone of perfection. And that's just not, balance is good. But sometimes when we think of balance, we think of perfect balance. So I would say steadiness. That steadiness matters for heart health over time. Gratitude doesn't mean that everything feels good in every moment, but what it means is that we it can look like, for an example, today is full. Let's say I'm going through something. I can say today is extremely full. Today feels heavy, but you know what? I gave myself 5 intentional moments just to breathe this morning. And I am so grateful for that 5 minutes that I had peace and quiet before everyone in the house woke up and I wasn't responsible for doing anything for anybody. That was a really good 5 minutes. I am so grateful for it. Gratitude could look like, for me, one of the things that I practice, and this can look different from others, the same thing we started it with. I put my hand over my heart and I feel my heart beating. And I'm grateful because if that heart doesn't beat, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Nothing else follows. Nothing else is important if the heart is not beating. So sometimes I'm just grateful that I still have that heartbeat. And that means that that's a starting point. I can actually move. Gratitude can look like breathing exercise. Gratitude can look like um, gratitude can look like I'm grateful for my breath. I'm grateful that I can open up my eyes, whatever that means for you. I don't want to belabor the point, but gratitude. And it anchors every other micro habit. Micro habit number two is breathing. I know this seems really simple, but let's talk about it. The heart responds quickly to the breath. Before we start thinking our way through stress, before we over process things in our mind and our hearts is really like carrying all of the stress, we can breathe through it. We can't breathe it away, but we can breathe through it. This is one of the most accessible tools that we have, one of the most accessible tools that we have. It doesn't require space or privacy. And I know we've probably been there before. We're like, I need space to breathe. We really don't need space to breathe. You can breathe exactly where you are, but I've said that before. I need space to breathe. I need to go away and I need space to breathe, but you can breathe exactly where you are. It travels with you everywhere. Even for an example, when you think about going away on vacation, you do not need to check to see if it's going to pass the TSA check If you don't need to worry about if it's going to fit in your carry-on, you don't need to worry about if you have to check it in with your bag. Breathing and your breath is going to go with you. That is one of the most accessible and low maintenance tools that you can take with you. So we're going to try one or two breaths together. So if you would like to participate, let's just do a quick inhale collectively, and we're going to exhale slowly through the mouth. I meant inhale through the nose. Then we're going to inhale through the nose, and we're going to exhale through the mouth. You can continue to do that as we move through the rest of the session. But breathing is really important, and it starts to regulate even your heartbeat. It starts to kind of like regulate stress. I don't want to get too clinical about it, but it works. And also, if breathing is something that you currently practice when you're feeling sort of like overwhelmed about something, or if you're just trying to calm yourself, if that's something that you're currently practicing, drop a heart in the chat. And we're going to move forward with the next micro habit, which is hydration. So, hydrating. Your heart works hard for you all day. It's like an engine, it needs fluid to function well. This is not about rules and regulations, and it's not about taking anything away. And the reason why I say that is because I know you see water on the left, and I know you see coffee and water on the right. So I'm not saying that don't drink coffee or tea or any of those things because I know people are sensitive about their coffee. I actually drink coffee too, slowing it down, but I actually drink coffee too. So I'm not saying that you can't have coffee, but what I'm saying is water paired with whatever your beverage of choice is can be really, really helpful, especially when you think water first. It's about offering your body something before the day starts asking something of you. So before the coffee, before the emails, before all the noise, before any of it, a glass of water. And even it can, when you think about even like just taking a few minutes to drink a glass of water, that's even taking time for yourself because you need to breathe and take your time and sip and drink water. That's time that you're taking to yourself to be calm, be in the moment, and create some awareness. So that's a small micro habit as well. So think about this as a quiet check-in with your body. You're hydrating, you're just giving yourself that time. And yes, I promise coffee is still going to be there. Coffee is still going to be there. If you are let me run to the corner store coffee shop, I need to dash out the door to run to Dunkin' or whatever your coffee of choice is, grab the Stanley cup, Yeti cup, the water bottle, whatever you carry your water in, grab it and dash out, and you can take it with you to Dunkin' Donuts. But just drink the water before you have coffee. Trust me, your body is going to thank you, or water before the tea or orange juice or whatever that might be, because the water really feeds the heart, and the heart is such a major organ, and it will thank you. It will thank you. Micro habit number 4. Don't let the pictures be a distraction because the micro habit is movement. I did not say exercise, I said movement. And the reason why I said movement is because when you say exercise, sometimes it adds a lot of pressure. Movement in general supports the heart in one of the most natural ways possible. Movement in itself, not exercise, I didn't say burpees, I didn't say crunches, I didn't say jumping up and down, I didn't say running, I didn't say high intensity, whatever, all of the things are. And those things are really good. Exercise is really important, but just think of it as movement. Think of just movement first. Movement helps circulation, it helps to regulate stress. It is really big for heart health, a huge support for heart health. It reminds the body that it's safe to move energy through it and not hold it in. If you ever been in a situation where you kind of felt a little bit of stress and you were just maybe you were walking somewhere, or let's just say that you were engaged in some sort of exercise, I'm almost certain that you felt a sense of relief, even if it was just a small sense of relief. If that is true, let me know that that has been your experience in the chat. It could be a stretch, it could be a short walk, it could be standing up in between meetings, even a little bit of gentle movement, like walking over to like a the water cooler or something like that at the job. It could be getting up from your desk if you work from home, because sometimes sitting all day, hours pass and you don't even realize it. Getting up, go check the mail. That's movement. Stretching your arms out, moving your wrists, moving your feet. All of those things, just any form of movement is sending signals to your heart, to your body, to your brain. It's communicating with you. So for heart health consistency, I want to say, well, heart health consistency matters more than intensity. So if you think about a consistent, a short walk daily, or this is, I created this micro habit where I'm just taking a short walk, and you do that consistently versus one day of just this rigorous training, you're going to get more results from consistency, meaning you're going to have a clearer mind. I'm not even talking about physical results. That happens too, but like more mental clarity, more like your heart is going to feel a little bit more like regulated and calm. Your stress levels are going to drop just from that consistency. You'll see more results from consistency than you will intensity. And thank you so much. I see some comments in the chat. And we are going to progress forward to micro habit number 5. So, micro habit number 5 is checking in. So, this is the final example that we have, but obviously not the only. These are only 5 short, basic micro habits. If you ever catch yourself, for an example, saying, I don't even want to think about it. When we go through things, we're like, you know what? I don't even want to deal with it right now. I'll just talk about it later or something. But no, sometimes you need that check in with you. And I know, for an example, when you think of check in with you, it can sound self-serving. So I want to just pause here for a second, because I know we have, especially for the strong friends that are on the call, I definitely want to call that out. Sometimes the strong friends just feel like they need to push through things, and the strong friends are the one that are reaching out to everyone else. The strong friends are checking in on everyone else, and all of that is good. But if you are not together, if you have an empty cup, you have nothing to pour from. So the check-in with you, just think of it as you are loading up, let's just think of a glass of water. You are filling your cup with water, not just for yourself, but you're filling your cup with water. So then you have more, you have the water for yourself, but yeah, it's about community. It's about giving back and things, but you want to be able to give something. But if you don't have anything, you have nothing to pour. So checking in with you is really important. People ask us all the time, how are you? And the first thing we say, I'm okay, I'm fine. It doesn't mean when people ask that you have to give them the whole rundown of everything that's going on in your life. I'm not saying that either. But what I am saying is checking in with you invites a different kind of check-in. I like to think of it as checking your internal forecast. So when you think about the weather, gonna use this as an example. When you think about the weather, when you look outside, you're checking outside and you're thinking, is it raining outside? If it's raining, the first thing you do is you're like, I need to grab an umbrella, or I need a poncho, or whatever it is that you use in those cases. You check, you understand the weather, so you know exactly how to respond to it. When you check what your internal forecast is, it puts you in the position to respond to it. It doesn't mean that the weather is going to change. It means that you know how to respond to it. When you look outside and you see that it's snowing, it doesn't mean that you look out and you're like, snow, stop, and the snow is going to stop. Or it's raining, and you're like, rain, stop. The rain is not going to stop, but it puts you in the position to accordingly, or protect yourself so you're not drenched in water and things like that. So again, when you're checking in with yourself, it's not about it being a right or wrong answer, but it's about checking your internal forecast. Is it sunny? Is it cloudy? Am I calm? Do I feel unsettled? And remember that the same way forecasts change, so do we. We're human. The weather doesn't look the same every day, and our internal forecast is not going to look the same every day either. So, lastly, and as we begin to move towards close, I just want to mention that we've been just been introduced to just a few short micro habit examples. And again, this is not a checklist, this is not a prescription. These are simply examples of how we can respond to the things that we've become aware of with care and what that looks like. So we talked about gratitude. We talked about breathing. We talked about hydration, movement, checking in with yourself. None of these micro habits are about adding to your list or doing a whole lot more, but it's about listening better. It's about, just understanding what matters most to you and not maybe not necessarily doing, practicing 50,000 micro habits, but tailoring some that works for you in your life and in the season that you're in, and noticing what feels doable for you at a given time. And the micro habits may change from season to season or stage of your life, I should say. It may not look the same all the time. These micro habits are built through intention and through small, consistent deposits. It's not something that you just change overnight. And when we care for ourselves in this way, through these practicing these micro habits, it it really causes a shift and it causes our life to transform in sort of the most quiet and like gentle ways, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. So again, it's not about changing your life overnight. It's about choosing how you show up one small moment at a time. So really quick, I just want to go through one final Mentimeter. And I want to ask, and I think we already have some responses in the chat, but I want to have you go in Mentimeter and let me just share the link. And I want you to select the micro habit that resonated, the micro habit example that resonated the most. And let me just in case we lost the link, I'm going to share that with you. Okay, sorry. Let me just get this back up on the screen. Okay, so I just shared the Mentimeter and you can drop that in the share which micro habit resonates the most. And it will start to rank them. So it looks like, okay, I see hydration is moving up, gratitude. Okay, so it looks like we have gratitude seems to resonate most, movement, hydration, checking in, and it's shifting, which is good. So we're gonna wait for a few more responses and then we'll move ahead. Oop, did we miss it again? Hold on. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove this from the screen, but it looks like movement, gratitude, they're sort of like in competing with each other, which is great. And then hydration, breathing, and then checking in with yourself. Okay, gonna move this over and then I'll bring the slide back up. So So, what I wanted to highlight is that everything that we've been sort of walking through for this session, we've been talking about starting with you. We're talking about awareness, we're talking about the mind and the heart. I mean, the mind and the heart connection. And then we were talking about micro habits. And it's about how do you anchor yourself? And then it positions you not just to show up for yourself, but showing up for others. And whether you realize it or not, it is a form of leadership. And I wanted to highlight a point about leadership before we start to shift, towards closing. So think about it as when you are caring for yourself and someone is watching you just become more aware, when someone is watching you handle to respond to the thing, whatever that awareness is with care, people seems, it's people become attracted to that. For an example, they want to know, what are you doing? Or, how do you remain calm in situations? Or I know that things are seems to be on fire, but you seem to move through it with grace. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. It doesn't mean that you feel you are untouched and you're not impacted by those things, but the way that you handle yourself with grace and with care through through navigating life, some people are watching from the outside. And that means you, even unintentionally, you are leading, you are showcasing, and you are showing others a different way of handling things, which I think is great. Anything that I do, I usually try to anchor myself as much as I can as possible so that way I can show up best for other people. I love my friends. I love my family. I love people that I don't even know. I want to help people that I don't even know, but I can't help anyone else if I don't have that level of steadiness myself. I can't pour from an empty cup. So saying all of that to say that when we care for ourselves, it quietly shapes how we show up for others. And whether we realize it or not, that is a form of leadership. So we practice everything that was personal, but leadership is what naturally happens next. When we are depleted, we're not really showcasing good habits. When we are handling ourselves with grace, we are showcasing good forms of habits. The way we care for our hearts, the way we are responding to what's happening in our lives, it shows up in our patience with people. It shows up in the decisions that we make because we're not making clouded decisions. We're not making decisions from a rough, rugged place because our minds are just so warped. Our hearts are so heavy. We're making decisions from a more steady, we can say balanced as well, place. It shows up in how we listen to others as well, how we respond to others. Leading from the heart doesn't mean that you have to, just be overly emotionally and in tune with everyone else, but it just means that you're leading from a place of steadiness. When we invest in our own well-being, we create the capacity to lead with clarity, to lead with steadiness, and to lead with care. And people feel that from us. And that's why I said people are watching. And I know some people may not feel that that's the most important step because they're like, I'm trying to get my own life together. But it's important for us to have our lives in a steady place and care for our hearts. And that way we can actually impact and inspire others to do the same. So people will hear through our actions long before we actually say anything to them. So if any of this resonates with you, if you feel like, maybe something, because I'm sure this is not new information. If you have made some shifts, whether it was like caring for your well-being, heart health, physical, emotional health, and you have inspired, someone maybe told you that and you inspired them, or someone asked you, how do you do this? How are you able to navigate these things? Or you felt in some way that you've impacted the lives of someone else by the way that you take care of yourself, let me know in the chat. Put a word, put a emoji, drop a phrase. I'd love to hear. Thank you, Dexline and Kalila. I see a couple of responses. Letitia as well. So let's talk about just moving forward. So for the past hour or so, we've walked through a lot, starting with awareness, inner wealth, heart health. We talked about micro habits or deposits, as I would say, and how it all flows into the way that we show up for ourselves and how we lead others. So before I transition this back over to Kalila, I just want to pause just for a moment and state this. If the heart guides how we show up for us, how we show up for ourselves or how we show up for others, then this becomes an important question that we should always return to. When we think about what we need to do for ourselves and how that would impact how we show up for others. It is an important question that we must and we should be asking ourselves. This is not something that we, again, that we need to solve in this moment. It's not something that we need to fix. It's something that we just need to notice. So I just want to encourage you to ask yourself this question with whether you take a deep breath in this moment, one last collective breath, inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And relax your shoulders and ask yourself in the most gentle way and with grace, hand over heart if you feel that you want to do that. What does your heart need right now? What does your heart need right now? Knowing that there's an intention for you to show up for yourself, and then that leads to an intention of how you show up for others. What does your heart need right now as even a starting point? As a starting point. If you would like, you can share in the chat. No pressure to do so. I know sometimes these things can be really personal, so I would never want to add pressure to share, but we're all going through this, traveling this journey together. So feel free to share because you can be an encouragement to someone else in the call. And I want to also just close this part of the segment by saying the heart is not asking for perfection. Caring for the heart doesn't mean that you have to be perfect in any way and there's a perfect way to address it. It means that you're responding with intention. I think that is the most important part, not perfection, but intention. So as I transition this over to Kalila, you're invited to keep this question with you, not as a checklist item, but more of an intentional, graceful, gentle question and a companion. What does my heart need right now? So I'll quiet down for a couple of seconds and I will prepare to hand it over to Kalila. And as you're thinking through that, I just want to say thank you so much for your presence. I know we moved sort of like quickly through some of the points and we didn't dive very deep, but it's really, about creating awareness. But I want to thank you for your presence, for your openness, and for sharing the space with me. And to let you know that my work with Hillionaire focuses on facilitating experience such as what we sort of touched on tonight that invites pause, reflection, and intentional action around how we live, how we lead, and how we care for ourselves. And as I continue to build this work through Hillionaire, that again, I'm so grateful and honored to be able to do this work. I'm grateful for the opportunities to stay connected and to partner with individuals and organizations who value this kind of conversation. And if this work has touched you in any way, feel free to share feedback because it really shapes how I continue to shape this work. And you're welcome to also share a word in the chat if there was anything that stood out or you felt that it was something that was really helpful to you. Any, feedback, you can feel free to drop it in the chat or my contact information is here. You can feel free to reach out separately and share that information. But feel free to stay in touch. No pressure at all. But just know it's appreciated. So with that, be well. And I will hand it over to Kalila. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naisha, for this wonderful presentation. The heart and mind is really connected to each other, and thank you for reminding us and educating some of us about micro habits and things that we can do that will help with our overall well-being. So thanks again, and thank you all again for joining us. Naisha, the CEO of Hillionaire, has all of her information on the screen. Please follow and reach out if you would like to. So please make note of her information and we will also share it out to all attendees, all registrants, I should say. At this time, we are going into the question and answer, the question and reflections segment. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I have a couple that were in the chat prior or during the discussion. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and you will be acknowledged. So we have a question from Tiffany Mathias, and she would like to know if making the bed is an example of a micro habit.
Can
Naisha,
you
I
hear me?
will let you answer that.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Tiffany, thank you so much for your question. And yes, making the bed is a micro habit. It is a micro habit because making the bed, and I think there's a book and I don't want to mix the person's name up, but there is a making the bed, brushing your teeth, that part of a routine because it is making space for yourself. And there's it's a act of care when you make your bed because that's where you rest, that's where you sleep, that's where, most people attempt to get quality sleep. And making that space and caring for that space is in fact a micro habit. So thank you for that. And I'm glad you asked because that's another one, if someone was looking for additional examples. That's another one. Thanks, Tiffany.
And we have more so of a comment.
Okay.
Patricia Price made a comment and said breathing is a good way to move your lymphatic system. So we have some nurses, some folks on the call that's in the medical field. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Patricia.
We have a comment from Letitia White. Hillionaire would be great, a part of the Workforce Institute curriculum. So thank you so much for that question, well, for that comment, Letitia. So Letitia actually is a part of my agency, Children's Services, and we deal a lot with cases of abuse and neglect. And a lot of times we neglect ourselves because we get so caught up in the day-to-day work. So this would be a great opportunity to bring to our agency.
Yes, and I welcome that opportunity as well. So, Letitia, thank you for your feedback. And actually, let me just put this in the chat for everyone. So, I put the barcode in the chat, the email and everything is all there. So, feel free to reach out. I would love to connect to just continue the engagement. And I absolutely agree. Any space where we're talking about caring for ourselves and how it impacts how we live our life and again how it shifts to how we care for others, it's never enough conversations about it, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Naisha. We have another question from Chantel. Her question is, if your cup is empty, which micro deposit is best to start with filling your cup?
That is a really great question. So I would encourage the starting point to go back to that starting point of awareness. In awareness, we started with asking, what is my heart feeling? Because usually when you're at that point of awareness, that's when you acknowledge where you're depleted. And when you acknowledge where you're depleted, then you know what you're in a deficit. I like to say that your inner wealth account is in overdraft. So when your inner wealth account is in overdraft, from it could be I'm not sleeping. It could be I am overextending myself in situations. Maybe you are giving more of yourself than you actually have to give. So maybe it's that maybe a micro habit is to carve out or give yourself like maybe a solo date. I'm just using that as an example. You could have a solo date where you go, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't want to make like some sort of like diagnose or prescribe anything, but let's just say a manicure. I don't know, whatever it is that you might be into, and creating that time for yourself to just do that for you. When you're adding back to yourself, it's you're loading, whether it's like you're filling your cup you're loading your bag up so you actually have something to give from your bag or you have something to pour into someone else. But I think the starting point, or I would suggest the starting point to be back at that point of awareness because a micro habit is usually caring for something, it's addressing something. But if you don't know what you're addressing, it's really hard to design a micro habit. So I don't know if that helps. And Charlene, I see you said once you check your inner forecast and there is maybe a hurricane approaching, what should be the first step to deal with that? I would like to probably toss that question back if you don't mind sharing. So if you check your forecast and there's a hurricane, so if you say hurricane, hurricane related to like personal experiences, things are just what would a hurricane represent is probably what I want to ask, if
I
you
would
don't mind
say
coming on
just
board.
like, dealing with a lot of things, whether it's work or any kind of personal issues or things going on, you can kind of see, like sometimes, especially if you're not constantly checking in with yourself, if you see that a lot of things are kind of going on and you feel like, things are kind of piling on and you know that, okay, you're about to go into a very turbulent time, like what can you do? What steps can you take to kind of like combat that or maybe, get in front of it?
That's a really good question. And there's no perfect answer, but a starting point could be you. So it seems like the awareness part has already happened because you're aware that something is coming and it's a lot of different things going on. So maybe a conversation is what's important of all of these things that are going on, what's serving the situation and what is depleting, right? That may not be a priority or may not be important. And there's no perfect, again, when I say these things, it's all trial and error because I still haven't figured out a perfect solution. I'm actually going through this, but it's not about finding a perfect solution. It's about taking the steps to try different things. We're all looking for ways to best support and care for ourselves. So awareness comes, in that case, I would say looking at things from looking at things holistically. What are all of the things that are going on? What are the things that are most important that I need to be focusing on? And sometimes you can deprioritize some of those other things because it may not be serving you in those space. And the things that, so you deprioritize, and then maybe it's still a load of other things that's still going on. What can you do to find balance with one or two? Let's say it's five different wild things happening. What are some things that you can do to add or to add some form of care to one or two of those things? Everything may not be fixed at once, but you're starting from somewhere. You're starting to care for like one or two of those things. You're adding something back to yourself. You're adding some form of care to yourself. But I think it's also looking at everything holistically, deprioritizing some of those things because I can guarantee everything that's happening, it's not important. It might in your mind instantly when you're stressed, it's hard to think through it. And someone put breathe and ground yourself. Roxanne put it, I think I saw that same comment from Dexline. Sometimes stopping and breathing allows you to think clearly. Because when you don't stop, when you don't breathe, everything seems like it's a big mess. When you breathe, you probably realize that half of the things that you're stressed out or you're worried or anticipating coming is really not that important. And then the things that are, again, practicing those micro habits of breathing, hydrating, and all of those things, it's not going to change. It's not going to probably take everything off of your plate, but you can breathe and you can move through it with grace and a little bit more grounded. Not sure if that helps, Charlene.
Yes, definitely helps. And I really liked what you said about prioritizing what's, most important. I think that's a really good key.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Naisha, and thank you for that question, Charlene. Roxanne, thank you. Stopping to breathe and ground yourself is definitely important and a way to deposit into ourselves. Tiffany has more of a reflection. She said, I used to think I was healing me and intentionally filling my cup. Then I realized my cup was a colander. This looked like me stepping out of my dance class to answer my phone because I am everyone's go-to person. I had to start muting or going on D&D. So that sounds like boundaries. Naisha, I'll let you react to that reflection.
Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing that. And I want to highlight boundaries as a micro habit. I did not want to go too heavy in talking and because again, I wanted to go through really basic examples of micro habits, but as you start to understand the concept of micro habits, you start to go deeper. So in some of the other work that I do through Heal Your boundaries is one micro habit that we talk about, but it's such a boundaries can be complicated for some people. It's hard for some people that have no boundaries at all to just all of a sudden start locking boundaries in place. Setting boundaries is one thing, but enforcing boundaries is a totally different topic because you can set boundaries, but if you don't enforce it, the boundaries are still crossing the in the first place. So Tiffany, absolutely. D&D, muting, it doesn't mean that you don't love who's reaching out to you and you don't want to help. It's just that sometimes, again, I don't like to go to the airplane example all the time, but it's so true. Everyone uses this example, but it's so true. You have to put your oxygen mask on first. If you don't have breath, if your heart is not beating strong enough, you cannot help anyone. You cannot help anyone. So sometimes your help you can even in communicating with someone, I'm helping me help you because as I strengthen myself, as I find more balance, as I give myself the space, as I allow my cup to replenish, I show up better for you. I can be a better friend, I can be a better partner, spouse, whatever your relationship, sister, brother, whatever your relationship is with whoever it is that you have a relationship with, you will show up so much better for others, even the ones that's just kind of like pulling and clawing and grabbing and they need you every second. They will get such a better version of you if they allow you to take care of yourself. You will be strands of fragments of yourself if you do not give yourself that care. And that's really not showing up for anyone. You're just showing up in pieces for people. But when you are taking that time and when you are grounding yourself, you show up so much better. And I think they'll appreciate that more. They'll appreciate the whole part of you. You don't want to show up as a quarter of yourself. You can show up as the whole you in spaces, and people will really appreciate that. Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's really an important point. Really.
Thank you
Do we
so
have
much.
any other questions
Do we have any other questions?
or reflections?
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you so much, Naisha. In closing, on behalf of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Kappa Zeta Chapter, Zetas Have Heart Committee, we thank you for joining us and for enlightening us and reminding us to make deposits into ourselves for this heart during this Heart Health Month. And you truly helped us to bring awareness into action. And we want to definitely wish you well. And if anyone would like to connect, Naisha's information is in the chat, and we will also be emailing it. We hope you all enjoyed, and we thank you for taking time out of your day for joining us.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you,
so much.
Jonathan.
Thank you again,
Yes.
Kalila. Thank you, Sheridan. Thank you, Sigma Kappa Zeta. Thank you, Zeta Phi Beta. I am so excited and just really grateful to have collaborated on this event tonight. Really appreciate it. And everyone, be well.
Yes, thank you. And I just
And
want to say to you, Nate, thank you for holding space tonight, for just for us to give our hearts the full attention that it deserves, right? So this was wonderful. And I also just want to remind everyone that we do have another upcoming virtual presentation on February 25th, which is a Wednesday, same time, 7 o'clock. But this time we're going to be talking to a cardiologist who will be speaking about heart health from the medical perspective. So I hope everyone can join us. All right. So enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you. And happy Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Happy
Another way to
Valentine's Day.
celebrate the
Yeah.
heart. Yes.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful
And
night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
All right.